Today we're gonna talk about one of the Dragon Maid collab exclusives, the 6-star Thunderorian Kanna. Yes, our first collab is finally here, and brought with it 4 new exclusive gacha characters, which obviously makes the decision to save for future content or commit to rolling right now all the more important. So is this small pink-haired dragon, who is also our newest Thunder sniper, worth some of your hard-earned blue member, blue flares and monkey pictures? Well, we're going to find that and much more out after I tell you to join my community Discord if you haven't already, and to maybe think about becoming a channel member if you really like my content and want to support me. But enough of that. After all, we do have a dragon to feed and an electricity bill to pay. So, let's get down to business and into our first Dragon Maid character case, by first checking out the most important part of Kanna's kit, her equipment. Reign of Dragons. This lets Kanna gain 1 charge whenever a Thunderorian or Dragon Maid character uses their active skill. This stacks up to 10 times, and every charge increases her attack by 3%, but she loses half of them at the end of every round. And yes, this does give me some Tessa vibes, but that last sentence... yeah, that's a problem. Especially if we take Kanna's fairly low attack stat into the equation, which makes it obvious that this equip was supposed to make up for that. But come on, Dog, what's up with that demerit? This basically makes this whole equip, that is pretty much crucial for her overall damage output, reliant on a specific type of team composition. Low CD ones. Which not only sounds very familiar, but also means that Kanna does in fact profit from being ran in Tessa teams, so that she can somewhat efficiently uphold her charges. And at this very moment, this means to getting it max up to like 5 or maybe 6, which can quickly drop down to 3 and then to 1. And not only is the space in these teams already kind of tight, but she is also quite a hungry little dragon. So this does also ideally require units like Luke to make Kanna truly shine, as she's a big fan of insects and bugs. So this makes sense, right? But anyway, Kanna's moments of glory unfortunately only last for about 1 turn, so the cost to maintain Kanna's overall strength is pretty high, and your payoff is sadly only on the lower side. But before we judge too early, let's look at one of Kanna's most surprising upsides, her chain combo. Lightning Strikes. This chain deals 170% damage to 2 enemies in a 3 cluster range at a chain trigger requirement of 3. 175%, but this time to 3 enemies in a once again 3 cluster range at 8. And last but not least, 180% to 4 enemies in the usual 3 cluster range at a 12 plus chain. And yes, this is a limited sniper chain, which is definitely not helping Kanna's case. But these chains are actually not too bad, as their starting requirements are pretty low. And having access to a 170% sniper chain with a decent range that also hits 2 targets at a 3 chain is still really good. Well, maybe not as good as it could be, thanks to her sadly subpar stats and very skill-hungry equipment, but hey, these chains at least still make her a decent choice for just general content and autoing as well. And her VA is also doing her best to make Kanna the most adorable thing on the world. So that's something. And I see what you are thinking right now. So stop, or I am personally escorting you to this car right there. But before that, let's check out Kanna's last saving grace, her active skill, Sky Glare. This skill lets you select 1 tile and shoots out a beam into that direction, which deals 280% damage to all enemies in its 3-tile way, also knocking them back as far as possible. All enemies that are hit with the middle part of this beam receive 1.3 times the damage. And well, you heard that right. Kanna has limited sniper chains, interactive skill pushes enemies back as far as possible. Synergy, am I right? Jokes aside, the skill is in theory fine, but if we take the rest of her kit into consideration, this just has no reason to be here. A damage skill with Kafkaesque targeting style, with only a knockback and no option to pull instead? Well, this just looks like Mr. Dog tried a bit too hard to make the Dragon Maid team a thing, which, spoiler, it isn't. So while the skill has synergy with Fafnir and co, it has none whatsoever if you just use her as a standalone character in any other team. Well, with one exception. The only saving grace of the skill is that this at least has some synergy with one of Kanna's most important partners, the to her buck-feeding mercenary, Luke. Because this at least allows you to take advantage of that not too huge but still valuable dot damage from Luke's stacks. But needing another 6-star to make the most of another one is always not the best thing. And in general, this active skill is just a nuke that mostly is good if you can still get closer to your enemies or fight versus an unmovable one. Or deathless exactly. But well, does Kanna even provide enough damage to be used in these kind of teams? Let's find out in our damage check. And for this version of our MMA arena, we are letting this small dragon girl fight off versus two of the most prominent Thunder 6-star snipers, the Lumina commander Wrath, and obviously also Kanna's favorite play companion, Luke. So let's start us off with a single target raw damage comparison, which gets us right into our first match. Kanna with 0 stacks versus Luke. Now Kanna at 5 stacks versus Luke. And this time, Kanna at 0 stacks versus Wrath. Kanna with 5 stacks versus Wrath. And as we predicted, her damage on single foes is way worse compared to Luke, but still somewhat better than Wrath's, at least outside of her overload mode. So basically, if you hit enough targets during the downtime of Wrath's skill, you do deal a good deal more damage than Wrath. And Kanna obviously also even does more overall damage than Luke if you fight off versus multiple enemies, as that is the biggest strength of Kanna and the biggest weakness of Luke's RNG chain. So what did we learn? Well, Kanna does alright damage at high enough stacks versus single tile foes, and should also in general be able to be more useful than Wrath thanks to her having a huge CD. But she truly shines when she is able to hit 3 or 4 foes, as she can easily be on top in those scenarios. But as we know, Kanna is constantly in need of food, and our wallets are probably the next best thing after some bucks. And apparently Maggie? So, let's just in case take a small peek at her breakthroughs. And as usual, we're only going to look at breakthrough 3 and 6, because those are the ones that actually matter for 6-star Aurorians. Kanna's BT3 quite simply gives her active skill Preemptive Strike, which at first glance is not really necessary, and that's also the case, because as you probably realized in these past few minutes, her active skill isn't that great most of the time. So this is basically just a bit more damage and one more stack on turn 1, aka not really worth. But here comes the FOMO. Well, she's collab exclusive, so if you even only kind of want this for some reason, you should probably try to get this, but I still don't really recommend it. Kanna's Max Breakthrough. This gives you 2 charges at the start of every wave. Yes, not round, wave. So this can be useful, and is also the only way to somehow get beyond 5 stacks. But it's MBT for an exclusive character. Don't sacrifice your firstborn for her. It's not worth. and she will only demand more offerings. Well, I will also have to call the FBI. And we don't want that, do we? So let's just instead wrap this whole thing up. All in all, Kanna, who is our second collab 6-star and also a Thunder sniper, is decent. She's not as bad as people try to convince you she is, but Kanna is also by far not the newest addition to the Thunder Hall of Fame, as she does not only have a kind of anti-synergetic active skill and limited range on her chains, but also a huge demerit on the most important part of her kit, her equipment. While I am all for making exclusive characters not too broken and just the right amount of strong, this didn't need to have this harsh of a downside. I would have rather seen a higher damage increase per stack with less of them, or just outright permanent stacks with lower benefits. So, we talked enough about what's not too great about her, so let's do the opposite now. Her by far biggest upside are her low chain requirements, as a 3 starting sniper chain with that high scalings is a very rare occurrence, and this makes her kind of useful for 2 things: general content and farming, and also, well, autoing, as the AI doesn't really know how to play, so these chains can definitely help. And just having someone that does good damage versus 4 foes is great for just everything besides hard content, bursting, and makes her overall, outside of Vice food contests, a solid character. So, let's get to the most important question. Should you roll for Kanna Kamui? In general, no. The only reasons that warrant rolling for her are: 1. You just really like the Dragon Maid anime/manga and really like Kanna. I'm calling the FBI real quick, by the way. 2. FOMO. The fear of missing out. Kanna is an exclusive character, and on top of that also tied to a collab, which are notorious in the gacha landscape to not rerun that fast, or sometimes even at all. So it will take at least 1 or maybe even more years until we see her again, if ever. So if you only have the slightest non-gameplay related feeling that you want her, you should probably try. And in that case, I'm also once again calling the FBI. And well, these were the only real reasons to get her, as gameplay wise, she doesn't bring anything amazing to the table. So if you don't really care about this collab, or are not a collector like me, you can just skip. But what you shouldn't skip out on is joining my community Discord, because I want to see you there. And if you really enjoy my content and want to help me out a bit, maybe even think about becoming a channel member, which also gives you these perks. And while we're already at it, of course a huge thanks to all of my current channel members. I appreciate all of you quite a lot. And I would also appreciate if you could tell me in the comments down below what your opinion on Kanna is, if you rolled for her, are planning on doing it, and all of that stuff. And that was once again all from me. Have a nice day and see you next time.